Hello YouTube. This week I've got the keys to a 2018 Honda Clarity Touring. Let's take a look. Before I start, just want to remind my viewers, if you could please subscribe to my channel. It does help me and it helps me get more cars and more videos to you guys. So this is the all-new Honda Clarity. This is a plug-in hybrid. I guess in California they sell it as a pure electric vehicle, but here it's a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. It gets about 80 kilometer range on the electric drive, and then you've got about another 550 kilometers on the fuel. So you get about 600 kilometers range on this car. Now it looks, from the front, it kind of looks like an Accord or maybe a Civic, and it's about the size of an Accord. I think it's a little smaller than an Accord, a little bit bigger than a Civic. It's got quite a bit of legroom in the back, but the back rear fender there is not the best view in the world. So I don't know why they didn't just make this look like an Accord and suck up the fuel mileage difference, I guess. Hopefully that glare doesn't grab it. So you can see there. Anyways, it doesn't look that great. I think it's kind of ugly, to be honest. So you got your plug-in here. This is where you plug it in right here. And then your fuel caps in the back there. And the other funny thing about this car is it kind of looks like a hatchback, right? So then you're like, wow, I've got a hatchback. It's got a ton of space. And then you come around and you go to pop the trunk / hatchback, and you realize it's not a hatchback. It's actually just a trunk. Now, that said, it is a very large trunk. As you can see here, it's pretty darn big, and there's more space down here. They could have probably filled out with batteries, I guess, but this is all batteries underneath here, and you can flip the seats down. But as you can see here, get in here, there's not much space really. You're just kind of flipping them down to get a pass-through kind of thing. The other weird thing is, see, there's a window up here. It's very weird. So there's a window up there, and the back of the trunk here is a window. So when you look through your rearview mirror, you can kind of see through both. But really, I only ever adjusted the rearview mirror to see here anyways. I'm not really looking through here, so I don't know. Maybe it's a safety requirement for kids or something. There is a backup camera. So there's that. This actual storage place here, there's a bag here. This is where the plug-in cable was when I picked it up, and I still got the cable at my house. Charging time is quite interesting. It's 12 hours from empty to a full charge on 120, and only 2.5 on 240 volts. So that's quite the difference. To be able to charge it up 2.5 hours is pretty good. Didn't mention the price. So they start at $39,999 in Canada, and this is the touring model. And it's a 45.5, so almost 46,000, and you do get $13,000 rebate currently from Ontario at the time of this filming. That might change at any point. So let's hop in the back. You'll see it. So the touring's nice. It's got leather. It's got a ton of features, lane departure, and that. We'll go through that. But hop in the back. It's quite spacious back here. Actually, there's quite a bit of legroom. As you can see down here, we were kind of laughing about this. This is like I don't understand. It's an iPhone or a phone pocket, I guess. My phone fits in there. That's pretty funny. You've got a map pocket, power outlet back here as well, and that's pretty much it. It's got this weird suede material on here. It looks okay, and it's got a wood trim. Looks pretty nice. No sunroof, 45 grand. That might not be good for some people. They're trying to save a little bit of weight, I think. And again, you got that weird window back here into the trunk. Center armrest with some cup holders on there. And that's pretty much it for the back. Just to give you a view of what the front looks like. A fingerprinted screen, that's for sure, and dusty. But the front actually looks pretty good. So let's hop up there and take a look. So you turn it on, greets you I don't think it's ready to go because my foot wasn't on the brake whenever I pressed it. So I'm going to press it with my foot on the brake. There we go. So now it's ready to drive. It's in EV mode. And you'll see here, going under in the menu here, 77 kilometer range. I did use a bit to drive over here. Try to get some dust off here without touching it. And there's a ton of fingerprints on this screen. So that's going to get fingerprinty all the time. This is the typical Honda screen. If you saw any of my other Honda reviews or anybody else's, it's the Honda screen, the iPad kind of thing they slapped on here. This is kind of the older model. I'm surprised that it doesn't have the volume knob. The Fit had the volume knob, the Civic had the volume knob. They started adding the volume knob everywhere after everybody complained. But no volume knob on this one. You do have it on the steering wheel, so at least you have that to save you a little bit. So this is the kind of taken out of the new Acuras for shifting. Instead of having the little handle, the pull back that you normally do in pretty much every other car, they've put buttons here. Now I'm not sure why waste this space with this when you could put it up here or on the dash or something like they've done in other vehicles, in other hybrids and electric vehicles. But you pull this back for reverse, so you pull back on that, and you'll see my reverse camera turn on there. And you press the button for drive, and you press the button for park. Now you don't have to press park, because what you can do is you can just turn it off, and it'll go into park automatically. There's a parking brake and park hold on there. A couple cup holders. A little bit of garbage in my cup holder, but we've got a couple of cup holders here. They're super deep. Like you can fit like a gigantic, whatever, super duper slushy in there. And then they have these things that flip down, so you can put a normal drink in there as well. Nice center armrest. Doesn't have any power or anything in it, but it's got some good space for, let's say, some junk you can throw in there. Down on the bottom, so this is all open. It's kind of hard to show on camera, I think. This is all open. There's two USBs down here and a power outlet. I don't know, maybe I can get through the steering wheel. There's power outlet down there. And but this is all hard plastic. So if you put your phone or anything in there, it kind of just slides around unless you have a rubber backing on your phone. And there's no QI charger in this car, which I was surprised about because the Civic has it and that. But besides that, it seems to have a lot of features. So down here you've got these Sport, Eco, and Hybrid mode buttons. And that switches your modes. So as you can see up here, kind of hard to explain, but I'll try to explain it here. So we've got this dark blue line, and then it goes kind of dashed and then gray here. So in EV mode, you've got this. Basically, if you hit the throttle, the gas pedal, until you get to here, then your gas engine will turn on. So to get here, you pretty much have to floor it. If you drive normally, you'll never get to that point. So if you switch this button, and you'll see here, it'll switch and say hybrid vehicle mode on, and then that'll change here. And now you've got kind of gray dotted lines and then a dark gray line. So now whenever you accelerate, and there's like a little needle, and if you accelerate harder than this, then your gas engine will turn on. And this takes quite a light foot, actually. So you'll get into the electric to the gas engine quite often in that mode. This car also has, it has this Eco button, so that kind of turns on and off this little leaf thing here, and that it changes a few parameters on the car. But I've actually been driving in that mode. A lot of cars, when you drive in Eco mode, it's very hard to drive and very frustrating. Not in this car, it's pretty good. Sport mode gives you quite a bit of power. Surprisingly, it's pretty quick. So this car has a 1.5 liter engine in it. I believe it's 103 horsepower, 99 pound-feet of torque, so not that much. But then whenever you add in the electric drive, which they rate at 181 horsepower and 230 some pound-feet of torque, they're saying basically you've got a car with 212 horsepower. So it goes pretty quick, and that torque, the 230 some pound-feet of torque, it's pretty good. Even when your battery is drained, you still, for EV mode, you still get hybrid mode, so you still get battery assistance, so you're always getting a ton of torque, so the car feels very quick. If you actually run out of battery completely for your EV range and you're driving on the highway, you're going to average about 5 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. which I did that the other day. I ran out of EV range, filled up the car, reset the trip, drove on the highway, and I got about 5 liters per 100 kilometers. For the week, I did over 600 and some kilometers, averaged 1 liter per 100 kilometers, which is impressive. And the only reason for that, actually, for using more than 0, was because I did a couple highway trips where I had to go way more than 80 kilometers. And on top of that, sometimes the engine does run to do kind of a maintenance mode and charge the battery. So sometimes the engine will run even if you have battery charge left. So let's go over the dash here. As you can see here, this is your average fuel economy. And this is all controlled on the steering wheel here. So we've got this info button. And in here, you can kind of flip through a bunch of stuff. So if I hit this one, this is your range. So I've got 75 kilometer range left on EV and 511 on the hybrid mode. So 585 kilometers, so about 600 kilometers you'll get. And there's a bunch of other stuff in here, and you can look at music and your cell phone and text messages and that in there as well. It even shows you a level gauge of some sort, not quite sure why. And this gauge here will show you how the wheels are being driven, battery or from the gas engine. So on the left, you've got your hybrid, your battery voltage or battery charge, and your right, you've got your fuel gauge on there. You've got trip set here down at the bottom. It's got automatic headlights. Actually, not sure why it's not in auto mode. Didn't notice this week. Haven't driven it at night, I guess. It has paddle shifters. Honestly, never used them all week, so kind of pointless, I think. It's got cruise control, it's got radar cruise, it's got lane keep assist. I believe it has a stop and go even on the radar cruise. It'll keep the car straight on the highway for quite a long time. Without touching your steering wheel. Like I was driving on the highway, I just said lane keep assist, and it kind of centered itself on the highway for quite a while. I was pretty impressed. Eventually, it did tell me to touch the steering wheel, so it's almost autopilot. Although I found that it tends to correct a lot, I started to kind of feel sick because it was doing this. Instead of just like driving and looking far ahead and having a nice smooth curve, it would do this and kind of curve through a curve. So that was kind of annoying. It also has emergency braking. And a couple times while I was driving, not with this system, I was actually turning the steering wheel, going around a curve, and there was a car coming around that curve the other way. It happened to me 3 times where it came up in the dash here with a big brake sign, beep, 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 brake. It didn't brake, but it thought that car was going to run into me. And this was just normal, everyday kind of driving. So that I thought was very odd. On the left-hand side here, other things that we have, there's a lane departure assist. If you go, they call it lane mitigation, I guess, or road mitigation, so you don't drive off the road. And you've got that brake system, traction control off, collision alert, and then there's a button to open up the plug port. And then we've also got buttons to open up the trunk and the fuel on the back there. And it is power windows, auto up and down, all around, I believe. Yeah, so it's auto up and down all around. What else do we got here? On the end of the signal light stalk, there's a button here, and you press that button, and then it turns on the camera. So there's a camera underneath the right mirror, and that'll turn on. So I turn it off. If you turn it on, turn your signal light on, your right signal light, that'll show you there, and that shows you the distance, and shows you if there's anybody in your blind spot on the right-hand side. So you can just activate the button, or you can turn on the signal light. So it's kind of good if you're driving in the city, maybe, and you want to see if there's somebody there. You can activate that camera, and you can and look to see if there's somebody on that side if you don't want to turn your head, I guess. Dual zone climate control as well, and kind of wood dash here and this weird stuff. That's pretty much it for the interior. It's pretty nice car to be inside, if I'm honest, and it's kind of nice to drive. So let's take it for a drive, and we'll go over that. So we get on the throttle. I don't want to say gas because it's mostly electric, and it picks up speed pretty good. Nice and torquey. you get on the brake, and you see in this graph here, hopefully the camera picks it up, it's recharging the battery. When you're driving in the city, every time I accelerate and then brake, I'm pretty much regenning almost everything that I've used. So I noticed that you get pretty good mileage in the city. Now, I did mention the car is a little bit quirky in terms of looks, and it's got those weird windows in the back, and it's got the weird trunk, and it's like, so it's a little bit quirky in that regard, but as a driving vehicle, this thing is very impressive. The engine will switch on whenever it needs to. You don't have to think about it, it just does it, but you don't even feel it. So I've kind of said that for other vehicles, that you don't feel it. I've been trying to be able to tell when that engine switches on, and I'll see the dash switch when it switches modes, but I have no idea in terms of feel. You can't hear it. If you've got the radio on at all, like barely any volume, you can't hear it. You can't feel it at all. There's no vibrations. There's no shudder whenever it starts or judder. It's pretty darn impressive in that regard. The ride is very, very supple and smooth. It really is, a touring kind of car. The way it drives, tons of legroom, tons of space, really comfortable, great highway car. Surprisingly, a car with usually a small engine is not a great highway car because they're usually buzzy. But this car, it's not buzzy at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to hybrid mode, so that, there we go. So now that the engine will be on whenever I get on the throttle, and now it's on already. The camera is not going to pick up any kind of judders, obviously, but it's ridiculous that there's zero sound. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in sport mode, and then I'm going to accelerate through here. And I don't know if the camera picked up any noise. There was a slight buzzy sound from the engine, but it's so slight that it's not worth talking about. That's there's so little noise from it that unless you're really slamming the throttle down, which most people aren't going to be doing 99% of the time, it's just dead silent. So super impressed by that. Really impressed how it drives over bumps. Drives great in the city. Easy to park, easy to maneuver. Everything about this car is awesome, except I just find it ugly. So there you have it. That's the 2018 Honda Clarity. Looks kind of cool with those lights on, actually, in the front. I left it running. You can hear it's got an electric AC running. That's about it. That's all that's going on right now. Like I said while I was driving it, I think it drives actually pretty impressively. I've heard other auto journalists saying that they really love the drive of this car as well, but we just can't get over this rear fender. It's just, besides that, I think the car is great. If you use the darker colors, maybe you don't see it as much. In a lighter color, you really see the difference with that tire. And so I would, if you're interested in it, if you don't mind the looks of it, this car is pretty impressive to drive, and you get a lot of electric range, at least 80 kilometer electric range out of it. And I've been getting pretty much that all week, so that's pretty darn good. Thanks for watching my video. Again, please subscribe to my channel and like the video if you did like it. And I've got a ton of other videos that you can watch.